Hi, Stacey.
Hi, Jason. Welcome to This Crazy Life. Oh, wait, you're co-host.
Yes,
I have some to pick. I have a bean to pick with you.
Do you?
You're drinking Liquid Death, and I know you can't really show it because of advertising things,
Right.
but what is in Liquid Death?
Just sparkling water. I do find it, no pun intended, in poor taste that our previous conversation was about hospice care.
Oh, okay. So, but it's a different week.
So last week's guest.
Yeah. Who knows? Anyways, this is This Crazy Life, and it is just a crazy, crazy world we're living in these days. But I'm so excited to have Juliana Olinka here with us today because we're going to talk about the Mono County Grand Jury, a civil grand jury, correct?
We're going to talk about California Grand Jurors Association, civil grand juries, all kinds of things related to grand juries in
Okay.
California.
Great. What do you think about that? Have you ever been on a grand jury?
No,
Me neither.
no.
And you have
On a
to.
grand piano.
It's different than being selected, jury selection for a trial. That's when you get a thing in the mail saying you better show up here or else.
Grand jury, you're part of it for like a year.
You are seated for a year, and it is volunteer based.
Wow, you don't let them get
In
up and walk?
most cases, pardon?
I was kidding. I said, you don't let them get up and walk? They're seated for a year?
Well, they
Sorry, Julie. I have a little bit of humor.
well.
It's been a long day.
Every once in a while, they can get up and walk. You can even do your meetings standing up if you like.
Okay.
Well, let's dive into that. First of all, how did you get into the grand jury? Because when I first met you, you had almost just moved up to the Eastern Sierra from Southern California. You were leaving a entertainment industry.
Right,
Job.
and education. I was actually teaching drama at Taft High School.
Did I know that?
I think
It's Taft in...
Birmingham's nemesis. I went to Birmingham, Taft's in Woodland Hills.
Woodland Hills. Yeah,
I know quite a few people that have gone to Taft. When I was in the financial industry, I'd drive by Taft all the time down there.
Yeah,
there you go.
right by Winnetka and Ventura.
Small world.
And you did...
And my son went to Birmingham for
taught-
two. Yeah, I taught drama at the high school for 3 years.
Okay, so you were doing that, and then you were also doing publicity, right?
Well, I did. All right. So I worked at Warner Brothers for over 20 years. I did international promotions was the last thing that I did. But before that, it was international publicity, and I was in domestic media, always on the theatrical side of things.
Okay,
And you liked it.
Most of the time.
20 years.
What? Why, man?
It was good. It was good money. Okay.
Well, the connection of she liked it. She was in there for 20 years. How is she here doing this now?
Because I stopped doing that and I started teaching. So I left Warner Brothers and I was teaching. And then my very best friend is Shira Dubrovner, and I think she's actually been a guest on your show.
She has.
And we actually met at the Lonnie Chapman Group Repertory Theater in North Hollywood. My then husband was a writer, and he wrote plays, and Shira was a director, and she directed plays, and then I eventually joined the company as well, and then I did costumes for her production of Nuts, and then Shira moved up here, and I came up with her initially. I didn't move up here. My husband was still down in Southern California, was ill actually, and then I did a couple seasons of summer stop. Well, not summer stop. We did a couple of summers here with Shira. And then he passed away, and I moved up here.
And what year was that?
I moved up here in 2011.
Okay.
Right after the big snowstorm of 2010 and 2011.
I remember that one.
Yes.
That was right after Dan and I got married, that big snowstorm.
Great.
It was a great ski season.
I remember skiing avalanche snow that came off the top of the mountain.
What you are not.
But it was already done.
Okay, all right.
Here.
That's
And
fine.
then the next thing you know, you drop like 10 feet.
Right.
It was
But it remains to be seen what kind of a season we're going to have this year. We definitely have snow.
I
Definitely have snow. Yeah.
Let's not talk about this year.
Anyway.
Right now. No, I don't know when this is going to air, and hopefully this season, because today this taping of the show is January 12th, and we are going to have a second onslaught starting tomorrow, Friday the 13th. So this might not air until
Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Yeah, it's my older son's 36th birthday. Yeah, let's not talk about where he is. Okay. Okay.
Anyway, so when I was in Southern California, I actually served on a criminal grand jury and a civil grand jury.
Okay.
But I should say it was a civil case, so it was somebody was suing somebody else. So I had experience being a juror. And then when I moved up here, after a few years, I remarried my current husband, Lou Jones. So you can add Jones to the.
He's so cute. Your husband is very adorable.
And so we saw an ad in the paper, and it said they're looking for jurors. And he said, "Oh, I've always wanted to be on the jury." I said, "Oh, yeah, that sounds great. Why don't we both apply?" Well, we both applied, but the judge chose me because he knew me. And it was already in the term. It was like August when I started, and the term started July 1st. So I was on that grand jury, and we did numerous reports, and it was a civil grand jury. And then the next year, nobody from our jury wanted to continue. And I didn't want to volunteer unless Lou got on the jury, because he's the one who wanted to be on it in the first place. So they accepted him, and then they asked me, would I be on that grand jury? And I said, well, yes. Will you be the foreperson? Absolutely, no problem. So I did that. You're usually restricted to 2 consecutive years. So I took a year off. He stayed on. He did his second year. And then I went back the following year, which was 2 years ago. And it was it was kind of like tail end of COVID, the first round, whatever, and was the foreperson again. But I was approached by California Grand Jurors Association to become a trainer.
Wow.
And train grand juries. So I said, that sounds really interesting. And that's now what I do.
All right. So when you get selected for the grand jury, what's the process to volunteer? Let's say somebody wants to volunteer for 2023. What would they have to do?
All they would have to do is submit an application. It is actually on the Mono County Superior Court website.
Okay.
Just go to the website and fill out an application. So what most people don't know, and this is what I'm actually really excited about sharing with you, is that California is the only state in the union where, per the Constitution, every county is required to impanel a civil grand jury every year to investigate at least one county office and to do at least an inquiry into any state prison or jail in the county that holds prisoners longer than 24 hours and is required to write at least one report. And the report has to have at least one finding.
Well, Mono County only has one jail.
Right? Yes, we have the sheriff's jail. So Mammoth's police department doesn't count because they don't hold people over 24 hours. Right. So you would look at the jail.
Okay.
So every county is required to do this. And then how many people are on the jury depends on your population. If you are over 20,000 population in your county, it's 19 people in the
Wow. Okay.
If it's under 20,000, it's 11.
Wow.
County 11.
That's still trying to get 11 people every year. And for, how volunteer stuff kind of works, it must be difficult to get somebody to commit.
It is difficult, but I think a lot of people don't know about grand juries. The whole purpose of the grand jury is to improve government. We are the watchdogs. The civil grand jury that is seated each year in each county is a watchdog to look at government offices. Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are there issues? Is there something that can be improved? And then we'll say, hey, this is what we found. This is our recommendation. And then hopefully that recommendation is taken to heart by the entities, whether it's the Board of Supervisors or a Joint Powers Authority or a town, to actually make change. And hopefully it will be change positive for the citizens. And there's no politics involved in it. You're just there as a citizen to look into government and make.
Now, has it worked? Have you sent in your paperwork, the oversight, and what you decided needs fixing or tweaking or whatever? And have you seen actually what you suggested implemented?
Sometimes it takes longer. I will say I have seen changes based on work that my grand jury has done. The very first one I was on, and all these reports, by the way, are published. You can actually go to the Superior Court website and you can see every single grand jury report back to whenever they were impaneled. So you can actually look and this is true of every county, or virtually every county. Inyo County does the same thing. They have investigations, they have grand juries, they have 11 people on their jury, and you can see if so you can look in those reports. Now, the first grand jury I was on, the report had to do with AmeriGas rates. And the recommendation from the county now, by the way, you can't look at a private company, but we could look at the contracts between Mammoth Lake's government and the entity. So one of the things that's in our reports was the varying different prices that the town was paying depending on where the AmeriGas was being dropped off. And a recommendation was that they standardize that. And I believe that has been done, that they went back, that the town or city government went back and talked to AmeriGas and adjusted the rates so it would be more. I mean, you can't have $1.64 here and $5 here. It's like
right, but that's just for the government offices, right?
Right, because we can't investigate private companies.
Right, yeah.
Civil grand jury can.
There's a reason we're, I don't know if I should say this on the air, but yes, I know. Yeah. Don't want to talk about any private companies either. But yeah, that was a big problem for a while. And I know that. And when I used to write for the shush. I'm dancing. I'm trying to be politically.
She's on tippy toes.
Correct. But when I used to write for the Mammoth Times, we would write about that, we're in Old Mammoth, so we were getting charged a whole lot more money than somebody in the trails was getting charged for the same amount of gas. And and then
wrong.
It's totally wrong. And totally wrong. I would remember 2 miles, maybe 2 miles. But in the winter, it's a lot. We just found out actually with our new gas company that if we don't dig out our tank, they're going to charge us for it. We didn't know that. So everybody. Yeah, don't know when this is going to air, but if you don't dig out your tanks, the gas company will charge for them having to dig out the tanks.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I used to read the grand jury reports because I used to report on them, and it's very interesting. Very interesting. I wouldn't know what you guys were. Of course, I wasn't on the grand jury, but it wasn't until I got the report that I knew what you were investigating. I'm like, oh,
that's
wow.
Because we can't talk about it. The grand jury talks through its reports.
Okay.
Its published reports. And those reports go through a whole process because you work with your county council or with the district attorney, make sure that, you're not going to be sued for libel. And we approach the material very carefully and is also reviewed by the judge before it is issued. So once the judge approves it, then the report can go out. And then the foreperson actually is required to stick around for another 45 days to answer any questions, but you can only answer questions based on what's in the report. Yeah. And when you are in a grand jury, you are sworn to secrecy for life.
Really?
Ooh.
For life.
Wow.
So I can talk about that particular report that we did because that was the public piece of it.
But you can't talk about what happened.
Right. We can't say, like somebody voted for something or they, that is.
It's like the HIPAA laws for.
It's like everything is behind a
espionage. Very secret.
And you interview people. The best thing you can do is actually interview people.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
How many hours are required if somebody was to apply? How many hours are they required to spend?
I would say
for the year.
All right. For the year? Oh, I couldn't even calculate the year. The challenge with the grand jury is in the beginning, it's not quite as intense as it is as you get towards the end of an investigation.
Mm-hmm.
So once the grand jury meets and they figure out, what they want to investigate. And by the way, if citizen complaints come in, and you can register a complaint on the Superior Court site as well, or you can send a complaint to the grand jury, they will review those complaints. They're not required to investigate something that just because somebody complains about it. But if they get a complaint, they will at least review it.
Right. It could give them guidance into something that might need to be taken care of. Like you're talking about, it's keeping government in check.
Yeah, keeping government in check because, somebody, you don't want to get a complaint from someone who's got an issue or an extra grind. If they have an extra grind, that's fine, but there might be some there. But that's what the grand jury does, is then it would review that. First of all, is it their jurisdiction? Because it has to be something that you can investigate. And so once you know you can investigate, you can start an inquiry. You can kind of look into it, maybe do a couple interviews. And then the grand jury, the beauty of the grand jury is they decide what they want to investigate. It's the grand jury who makes the decision. They can't be told by the DA. They can't be told by the judge. Nobody tells you. The grand jury, those 11 people in Mono County sitting in a room, decide what they want to investigate.
So how do you only get these, I don't know, cases or these governmental entities to look into because of people complaining? Or is there like a list you have to go by every 3 or 4 years? You have to look into a certain part of the government?
Yes and no, sort of.
Okay.
Good answer.
Yeah, she fits right in.
Okay.
She fits right in.
So here's the thing. There are so many potential entities that can be investigated. The court actually has a running log of what entities have been investigated over time. So as a grand jury, you're sitting down, you might not have any complaints. I mean, we had 1 year, I think, I don't even know if there was a complaint. So if there are no complaints, what are you going to do? Sit around, twiddle your thumbs? No, you're going to figure out what it is that you want to investigate. So it can be the jurors come in and you sit in the room and everybody goes, is there anything you want to look into? I say, hey, I want to look into, property taxes. So then...
Do they say it just like that?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to make fun of anyone. Please don't think I'm making fun of anyone. But, somebody comes in and says, I want to, I'm really upset with such and such that's happening right now. Well, you might not want that person on that investigation.
Because they have a phone stick.
But it may be a very valid issue that can be looked into by the grand jury.
Okay.
So the jury itself kind of decides. So
can they recuse themselves if somebody comes in, the grand jury, and says, you recuse yourself from that specific...
From that investigation.
Okay.
And when you are... Recusal is really an interesting situation. If you're recused, you can't be in the room when it's discussed. You don't vote on it. You can't be interviewed if you might know all about it. You can't be interviewed. You are out of the way.
Well, it's not unlike if a town council member has conflict of interest. They have to recuse themselves and they can't be in the room.
You have to leave the room.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on juries where we've had people recuse, and if they have to recuse themselves, they say, okay, well, so you're the third item on the agenda, so could you just step out and we'll call you when we're done because you need to come back, but you have to go on the next one and you go out. So, but you have to have a minimum. So if we have 11 people, we have to have 8 people before we can vote on anything or determine anything.
That's the quorum is 8 people.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in a jury of 19, I think it's, I should know that.
So
my trainers are going to be really upset with me. I didn't know that number.
Your shoes? Your trainers? Your shoes are going to be really
training team. The training team of California Grand Jurors Association.
This episode of This Crazy Life is also sponsored by Jaspin IT Consultants. Jaspin is trusted by financial firms, hospitals, and small businesses with over 30 years of experience, specializing in computer repair for PC and Mac, managed IT solutions, managed antivirus, servers, virtualization, networking, surveillance solutions, VoIP phone service, and digital signage. We are building a reputation for creating a positive return on investments for our clients. If you are serious about your business success, our team of professionals can get you there. Strategic thinking, personal attention, competitive prices, real-world results. Discover the Jaspin difference. Located at 249 North Main Street in Bishop, California, 760-872-2797, or on the web at www.jaspin.com.
So if somebody, like just a regular citizen, complains about, let's say, the DA's office, Will the DA office know that that person is the one that filed the complaint? Or is it anonymous?
No, it's always anonymous.
Okay.
If you look at some of the past reports, it might say, we had 4 investigations. 2 of them were based on citizen complaints. That's as much as you're going to know. That it was based on a citizen complaint. You're not going to know who complained, what they complained about, what the issue was. You're only going to know what the investigation was, and then what the findings and recommendations were based on what the grand jury did.
Interesting.
I
didn't know any of this. Did you know any of this?
Yeah, I wouldn't go make any complaints because I'll know they can't from here right now. Wait.
You know what? I got to tell you, since I've been out of the reporting part of which is, I really stepped back because I was on the radio up there for many years, news director, and then doing the Mammoth Times on and off for many years. And then I had to step back because being a news reporter for town and government stuff is very stressful. And so I stepped back. And so there are still some people though that will see me that I used to kind of report on their thing that won't talk to me because they're afraid I'm going to, it's Stacey Powells, the person who was, doing news. And I just don't care anymore. I just don't care. I'm doing my own thing right now. I don't, whatever the town or the county makes, it's fine. And I just wonder what the time commitment.
Time commitment.
Yes,
I know. I was just going to get back to that because that was the initial question you asked. So it really depends. Like I said, the beginning of the term is a little bit less intense because you're determining what you want to do, and then maybe you're conducting interviews with people, and you may be writing preliminary reports, and you tend to break people up into committees. So there might be an editorial committee. Editorial committee is going to have a lot more work towards the end of the term because that's when they're going to be reviewing the reports. If you're doing an investigation, you might be doing a little bit more in the beginning. So it could be anywhere from 10 to 20 hours a week.
Oh, like for the whole year?
A month.
Oh, okay.
10 to 20 a month.
I was going to say, that's a part-time job.
No. 10 to, I meant months. Sorry.
Okay.
About 10 to 20 a month.
Okay.
And when you get to the end, it's called the plenary, by the way. The minimum number is the plenary. So it's 8 out of 11 in Mono and in Inyo County. But when you get to the end, let's say I'm on a committee and there's a committee, there's like 3 or 4 of us, we're doing an investigation, we start writing a preliminary report. We report back to the plenary, periodically progress that we're making. But by the time we get to the point where we have a report that we're ready to share in full with the plenary, everybody has input because everybody is issuing that report. Even though there's a committee that worked on it to begin with, everybody has input. So there's no one person or one group, a smaller group from a grand jury. It's the full grand jury that issues that report.
So with COVID, you had to meet Zoom, I'm guessing. It was a Zoom meetings. And so is that happening still? Like what if somebody wants to be on the grand jury, but they know that for 2 months out of the year, they're going to be somewhere else?
Oh my gosh, what a good question, Stacey.
Thank you. Can they join in Zoom? Because people travel and leave. And
so this one of the things that came up, our grand jury year, we met, we were sworn in the courthouse. Everybody was in masks. We're all 6 feet apart. First couple of meetings were only on Zoom. As the COVID restrictions began to be lifted, some of us met in the courthouse. Everyone was still masked. But the court here in Mono has a fabulous setup so that we can actually do Zoom on a big screen, and they've got the cameras so that the people who are on their computers at home can see the people sitting in the room, sitting. So we were able to do a really good meeting. But one of the things that came out of the grand jury the year that I was on it is we recommended to the Board of Supervisors, or to the court, and therefore to the Board of Supervisors, that they buy laptops to be used exclusively by grand jury members during their year. And we have a dedicated, secure site. So because all the information, no one can see it other than the grand jury members. But we set that up and there's a specific grand jury Zoom account. Okay. So that the grand jury, you don't have to live in Mammoth to be able to be on a Mono County grand jury. You could be anywhere.
But you have to be
a Mono County resident.
You have to be Mono County
Okay.
resident. I'm saying you don't have to live in Mammoth.
Okay.
But you have to live in Mono County.
Okay.
But because we're such a huge county, I mean, to drive from the southern end of Mono all the way up to the
Topaz.
to Topaz,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long time.
So
So
hours.
you can't expect people to be coming in for meetings all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But because we actually not only have the laptops, but the Zoom account, and the ability to do multimedia basically
Right.
for our meetings, we can do that. We can do interviews. You can record interviews.
Oh, perfect.
Most of our interviews were actually recorded
Okay.
on our private
Right.
Right.
area and then deleted at the end of the year.
Oh, that's.
We are like,
I just want to ask her a real quick.
Go ahead.
Real quick question. So, do you travel all over the state? training
Okay,
people?
so the California Grand Jurors Association's purpose is to help grand juries to write really good reports to really improve government.
Okay.
So we travel. Some of us travel. Sometimes we do Zoom. I'm actually doing a training next week with San Bernardino County, but I have been in multiple places around the state. And yes, we travel, and we've got multiple teams of trainers.
Great.
Travel the state.
Okay.
we have less than a minute and 40 seconds.
Okay.
I want to ask one fun question.
Ask her.
A fun question.
If you, and this is great because of being the judge, if you are a god,
Yes.
what would you do to the world?
Oh, Gerald. Oh,
I am a god.
I'm a god. I'm a god. That's such a good question. I think I would sprinkle it with fairy dust.
Okay. All right. Do one more. Do you got one?
Yeah, sure. If Hollywood made a movie about your life, who would you like to see play the lead role?
Lead role. My life? Holy moly. Well, I used to look a little like Jane Fonda, but now she's even older than I am. So
A young Jane Fonda.
young Jane Fonda. There you go.
I love it. Well, thank you for being a
Thank you, Juliana. And you go to the Mono County Superior Court website, and there's probably a link and an application. And
Join
thank
the
you.
grand jury. It's so much fun. You
Thank
learn
you.
so much about government and people, and it's great.
Thank you, Juliana. And thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
It was Crazy
I
Life.
wish we had more time. We do. We have one more question. Do you like Jerry or Tom?
Oh, Jerry or Tom?
Yeah, Tom and Jerry. Which one do you like?
Bugs.
Okay. Well, I'm Jason Brown with This Crazy Life.
And I am not.
You're Stacey Powells. That's great.
I'm Stacey Powells, and thank you so much.